You hear a lot of people talking about transitions when it comes to bass fishing, and there's different sorts of transitions, different times bass transition from different phases of their life. And in today's video, I want to go over the three major transitions in a bass's life year to year that can help you to catch more fish if you understand them. So the first transition is going to be the pre-spawn to spawning transition. Now this is normally going to be early in the spring. It's when water is anywhere from 55 to kind of 60-ish degrees. A lot of the times during this time frame, bass will start to move from deeper areas or anywhere they've been wintering into shallower water. The reason that they're doing this is not only are they feeding up and preparing for the spawn, but they're also getting ready to spawn. I mean, they have to get in shallower water for their eggs to actually be viable, because bass's eggs need a certain amount of UV light to be viable, and so they have to get in a certain depth range, shallow enough for that UV light to penetrate and to hit their eggs. And so bass in that pre-spawn transition will start to transition from deep water or anywhere that they've been wintering. They'll start to get more shallow. They're willing to start eating things like crankbaits, bladed jigs, Ned rigs, jigs drug on the bottom, pretty much anything that looks like a bait fish or a crawdad or a bluegill. I mean, bass just start to get hungry. They start to get mean, and they start to get willing to eat anything that they can get into their mouths, because the spawn itself is going to be a time when oftentimes bass don't eat much at all. They're more kind of focused in on making babies, and then the males are more focused in on protecting those babies than they are actually being predators. And so they tend to feed up and to kind of get a bunch of food in their system, preparing and kind of, instinctually knowing that there's going to be a drought season or a season when they're not going to eat much. And so they'll eat a bunch in that pre-spawn to spawn transition to prepare for that. The next thing is going to be the spawn to post-spawn transition. Now this is literally when they're on the beds and they're spawning to when they are done spawning and they start to move away from the spawning areas. The spawn is going to happen normally in a 60 to 65 degree water temperature range. Again, this can vary all over the country of when this actually happens, but water temperature is what is key here. The bass will make their beds, they will have their babies, and normally the female will move off and she will leave, and the male will stay, and he will be what is known as a fry guarder, and he will guard those fry till they get to a certain size, and then he'll just kind of instinctually wander off. During this period of time, bass are often lethargic. They don't really want to eat much, and if you want to catch them, you're going to have to catch them off the beds, because again, they're not being very predatory. They're not like going out and looking for things to eat, but if something gets in their bed, gets in their area, they will defend their nest and try to get it off of their nest, because again, they've done a lot of work before the spawn, they've done a lot of work during the spawn, and that's how their next generation is going to be passed on. And so they'll protect those babies, and they'll eat anything that you put on that bed. Now, as we go into that spawn to post-spawn transition, the post-spawn is literally after the spawn. That's all that it means, is post. Pre means before, post means after. This is after the spawn. And a lot of the times, this is when bass are going to either transition back to where they were before the spawn. That normally means out deep, or they're going to transition back to where they were during the winter. This can be in shallow water still, and this is one of my favorite bites, because as those bass start to move off, as they start to get a little bit deeper, they kind of transition to the ends of trees, the ends of boat docks. That's when they're a lot more willing to eat things like topwaters, wacky rigs, flipping baits, frogs, things like that, because now, they fattened up before the spawn. They had a long period of time when they're on the bank spawning and not really being predators, and now it's post-spawn and they are ready to eat. They're hungry, they're pissed off, and they're wanting to eat something, and so they're a lot more willing to eat things. And oftentimes this is when you're going to find fish that start schooling back together just like they were in the winter, or you're going to find those big, rogue individual fish living on things like brush piles, the ends of boat docks, the ends of trees, of things like that, and you're going to be able to get them to eat. And then the last transition is going to be the summer to fall transition. This is oftentimes where you're going to see a large population of fish that were living deep transition back up shallow, and it's because a lot of shad, a lot of bait fish start to move up shallow in the fall, and those fish are going to follow the food. This doesn't really have a temperature range, but more of a length of day thing. As the length of days starts to shorten, everything in the lake that lives outside kind of knows that this is coming. The bait fish start to move up shallow. They start to eat a lot of like the algae blooms and things that happen late summer, early fall. The bass just follow those bait fish up there because they're going to want to eat them. And again, this is one of my favorite times of the year because bass get stupid hungry again. They get willing to eat things that I love to throw, like buzz baits, big top waters and stuff like that, because they do a really good job of mimicking all the different bait fish and things that are up shallow. But those are the three major transitions that bass are going to go through. And if you want to see me get on an awesome fall topwater buzzbait bite for some transitioning fall bass, click this video. It's popping up right here.